The date is February 25th, 2020. The location is the home of Liz Wind in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. The time is 10:45 a.m. Today, the person being interviewed is Elizabeth Ann Whitelam Wind. Liz was born on January 31st, 1919. Liz worked at the Ford Highland Park plant in Detroit, Michigan during World War II. This interview will be conducted by Claire Kitchen Dahl. This interview will be videotaped by Claire Kitchen Dahl. The observer present is Liz's son, Dave Wind. This interview is being conducted on behalf of the Oral History Project at the Yankee Air Museum in Belleville, Michigan. Liz, thank you for sharing your memories of working at the Ford Highland Park plant during the war years. By preserving your story of the home front during World War II, our national narrative will be more complete, honest, colorful, and accurate. Primary documentation is vital to any study of that world conflict, and we appreciate your willingness to help fill in the gaps. For the record, what is your full name, including your maiden name?
Elizabeth Ann Whitelam Wind.
And where were you born?
On Lothrop Avenue, where the Fisher Building is now, in January 31st, 1919.
Okay, and that's Detroit.
Detroit.
Right, 171 Lothrop.
Right.
All right. Now, that was during the flu epidemic.
Yes.
Tell me a little about that birth.
My mother had the flu, and I got the flu from her. And many died in 1919, but being 10 pounds, I survived, and we both did. But they gave up on me, but I survived.
Well, that's great, but your mother survived also at that point. Well, that was incredible that this had. Did you have other family members that caught the flu?
No.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
All right, and your parents, what were their names?
Minnie Elizabeth Reed Whitelam, Frank Edward Whitelam.
That's it, Frank.
That's it.
So Frank and Minnie were your parents.
Right.
That's great. And you had two siblings.
I had a sister, Florence, 10 years older, and a brother, Reed, 4 years older.
Okay, so there's the three of you.
Three of us.
And you were the baby.
Right.
And your brother was called Reed, and that's your mother's maiden name.
Absolutely.
So a little bit of family history being
That's
continued all the time. I love that. All right, now tell me about the occupation of your father, because he has a very interesting story, which is really part of Detroit history.
Yes, he came to work for R.H. Fife and Company, the world's largest shoe store. And he was the display manager and had control of decorating all of the woodward windows and all parade stuff and everything. And he had there were 10 floors, and they had a shoe repair, they had everything there. So he stayed until he retired.
So he was the display manager at this point. Now, this was at Adams and Woodward?
Right.
And you said that you used to go upstairs and watch parades?
Absolutely. We watched all the parades down Woodward there and Fifes. And
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Outside on a roof, or were you looking
no, we
through
just looked out
windows?
the windows. They had big windows. The building is still there.
And it is now apartments?
Yes, the condos.
Okay, so that was R.H. Fife and Company.
Shoe company.
Shoe company. Did you always have good shoes?
Well, yes. And then they had a worn shoe department. People kind of maybe scratched them, and they didn't. My father was always looking for the worn shoe department for me, which was fine. They were like brand new anyway. So.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay, and you said that your mom was a homemaker.
Absolutely.
All right, and you had a happy home because she was in charge.
Woodward Avenue Presbyterian Church, and the schools were fine, Detroit schools.
Well, now you moved to Hazelwood when you were 5. So basically you grew up at
Right.
3230 Hazelwood in Detroit.
Right.
Tell me about your house and your neighborhood and what you remember of growing up at that spot.
It was a gray shingle house with 3 bedrooms, and my sister and I shared one, of course, and the Catholic school was down the street, but we all mingled and they were all fine. We all lived there for years and years, and it was a great place to live, very safe.
You remember having indoor plumbing?
Oh yes, we had an ice man and a milkman and that type of thing. So.
And your mother had a washing machine?
No, I don't think so. I think she probably sent it out to the laundry.
Okay.
The heavy stuff.
All right.
And hung it outside.
Sure, sure. And you were members of the First Presbyterian Church?
No.
Oh.
Woodward Avenue Presbyterian.
Oh, the Woodward Avenue Presbyterian Church.
Philadelphia and Woodward.
Okay, great. And you said that when you talked to me earlier that you took some vacations by car.
Oh, yes. We didn't go far. We just toured Michigan. We did go to the Chicago World's Fair and went to Niagara Falls, and that's about as far as we went.
Well, but those are pretty big things. The Chicago World's Fair.
Uh-huh.
What did you think of that?
Oh, it was great, and stayed with friends, of course.
Of course.
It was great.
That's wonderful. And then you said, too, that you remember that your mom was the president of the PTO.
PTA.
PTA.
In Brady's in elementary. Yeah.
Okay, so she was very involved in your upbringing, your schooling, your
That's
church
right.
work, everything.
Oh, yes.
All right. And during the Depression, what did she do to help some neighbors out?
Well, we bought donuts from a friend whose husband was out of work. In fact, my husband's father was out of work 14 months without any subs, so it was a tough time for people. But my dad only made $3,000 a year, but it was too much for a scholarship.
Right. So you had a very comfortable life.
Oh, yeah,
very lovely life.
$3,000 was just fine.
Just wonderful.
We had the car and we had
a car, you had a good family, he had a good job, and off you'd go to the World's Fair.
And my grandparents went to the World's Fair before and brought puzzles, and so anyway.
That's wonderful. Do you remember what year that World's Fair would have been?
It was in the 30s. Probably.
Okay, well that's fabulous. All right, now so you did your schooling in public schools of Detroit and graduated from which high school?
Central High School in 37.
In 1937. And then when you graduated, you lived at home and worked a while?
I worked at Hudson's at $12 a week and they marking hats.
Marking hats.
Because you had to wear a hat to church, and they were very popular. It was on the 14th floor without air conditioning.
Oh, good grief.
It was very hot.
That is hot. And then, so when you're talking about these hats, were these fancy flowery hats?
No, just regular hats, and then we marked men's hats. I've got the Dobbs boxes. They let me take home the men's hat boxes and stuff. So
you marked women's and men's hats.
Yeah, oh yes,
all the time. Isn't that fabulous?
They watched you constantly. We couldn't talk to each other. Each of us marking hats. We'd been fired. We couldn't talk.
Marking them with prices or with something else?
They had tickets, and you put the hat in, and then the price went in.
All right, so after you did your hat work at J.L. Hudson, you went to college. Where did you go to school?
Albion College, Albion, Michigan, a Methodist school.
Mm-hmm.
And
you joined a sorority?
Delta Gamma, and I was president, and I played varsity tennis and met my husband there, and it was a great school.
Of course, Albion is a great school at this point. And so you all lived together in the sorority house, and you had
no, we didn't have friends? We all lived in the dorm.
Oh, in the dorm, okay.
We had no houses, we just lived at a lodge, that's all.
And what was your major?
Home economics with, I think I read science and something or other.
Okay, so you English. Were planning to be a teacher?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there you were, graduating from Albion. You graduated in what year?
41.
41, okay, and you met Richard Wind while you were there. He was older than you.
30, he's 3 years older.
Okay, but what a time, a lot of good stuff, a lot of varsity sports, lots of good learning, and a boyfriend.
And he played basketball there, and so they had a great family.
Great.
Born in Highland Park.
Okay, now you were 24 and still at Albion College when the attack on Pearl Harbor took place.
Yes.
Now, how did you hear the news, and how did this affect you and your friends?
Well, we all were in the, probably in the gym or whatever it was, and they just announced that we were in another world. When you lived at college, you didn't know what was going on. You were busy with your own
of course.
life. You didn't know what was going on in the world, so it was Yes, and then by then my husband had been drafted in 1940, so he said, I know I won't get out now. We're going to get out in 9 months, and he didn't get out.
Well, he was drafted with the second group, you said, from Detroit.
Yes.
And he went into the medical group, or the medical...
He was in, I don't know what he was in Jackson. He was just a private. I don't know what he did. Yeah, he might have been the medical corps.
All right. But you told me that he was issued a World War I uniform.
Yes, but the world was not prepared for a war, the world.
Now, did you hear, when they gave you this announcement, was it just somebody else telling about Pearl Harbor, or did you hear Roosevelt
radio
at all?
or the president or somebody? Right. I can't quite remember, but...
But you remember hearing Roosevelt talking about it at some point.
Oh, yes.
All right, and so your Dick was your fiance at that point, but he knew his future was going to now be long-term in the Army. He had hoped for a shorter stint, but this was going to now be war. All right, so then now tell us then about your wartime wedding.
Well, he got a leave to come in 42. No, we were engaged in 41. In 42 he came and gave my family a $5 wedding cake and a very inexpensive and hotter and hecky, and it was fine. We were married in 42, and he went back to Texas. I went with him, and then he found he could go to Officer Candidate School in Miami Beach. So we went there for a while, but he said, it's so tough, I want you to go home and come when I'm commissioned. So.
Okay, but let's go back to that wedding for a minute.
Okay.
All right, it was only 5 months after Pearl Harbor, and you decided, that's it, I am not going to teach, I'm getting married, and I've got this handsome man, he was married, wearing his uniform.
Uh-huh. All right.
And what were you wearing?
The dress I made, but I had to stop teaching a month early because this came up in where I lived. She was a country teacher, so she took my job for the last month. I just said, I'm just going to get married. To heck with teaching.
To heck with teaching. I've got another life that's going to happen. So then you guys you drove to Texas.
Yes.
For basically your honeymoon.
Yes.
And then he went to Officer Candidate School, where?
In Miami Beach.
Miami Beach. And what do you remember? You were there with him.
Yes, I was.
Okay, what was life like on this
Well, it was
base?
during the war, and our beautiful apartment was $35 a month because there was none of the tourists could come. There was no gas rationing, so and then he got his commission and went to the Canal Zone in 42.
Well, now, and so when he went away, you said that, I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. Well, no, he was given what role? Where did he go? To the Panama Canal.
Yes.
And what was his role there?
Defense of the Canal Zone.
Was it a dangerous job?
No, it was very safe. It was just long. He was underground, and they had to make sure that if the Japanese had come to the Canal Zone, it would have been a much worse war. But they stopped. But if they'd blown the canal, that would have stopped everything in the war.
Right, worldwide shipping, there would have been an issue at that point. Now, you said he was gone for long times because you were not with him down in the zone. And you wrote letters every day to him?
Every day.
Did he write back?
You bet he did.
Well, good. Have you saved some of those letters?
No, I just saved the last one.
Okay.
When he came home.
Now, did you use V-mail or foldable?
No, there was nothing like that.
You just used regular envelopes, regular mail?
Or maybe it was cheaper for him to, I don't know how, but it came every day.
Right, but you remember putting letters into envelopes as opposed to folding the paper into its own envelope. Okay, that's great. Now, your brother Reed was also in the Army during World War II. Yes. Tell me about that.
He was a glider pilot and was shot down, wasn't it, David, when he was on the way? And the Germans shot him down, and they were in the water, and they decided to let him survive. So they didn't bomb him in the water, so he was picked up and saved.
Well, who picked him up? The American Navy, or you don't know? But
I don't know who picked him up, but he
All right, he was torpedoed, you said.
Right.
His ship was torpedoed on the way to India.
Yeah.
And
he ended up in the water, and the ship was gone, but he was rescued by somewhere.
Okay, and then he spent the rest of the war where?
Probably in India. I don't. I really don't.
Well, you mentioned one time Bermuda to me.
I think he maybe went to Bermuda. Yeah, it's
Okay,
it's kind of a,
but still, he was a glider
Yes.
pilot, and he survived the war.
That's right.
And he had some serious action
Yes.
during this war.
Right.
Did you write letters to him too?
No, we didn't particularly. I was busy.
You were busy writing to Dick.
Yeah, because he wrote to the family, but no,
Of course. I'll bet everybody was very nervous when they heard that he had been
Yes.
shot down or when he had been torpedoed
Yes.
at that point. All right, then instead of continuing to teach school while Dick was down in the Panama zone, you worked at the Ford Highland Park
Yes,
plant.
in
during-
1942, when he left for the canal zone, I went with 42 with.
All right, now how did you get that job? Word of mouth, or did you see an ad in the paper?
There must have been something that they were hiring. And so I went, and as I said, we sat in a circle looking at all these candidates and said, who's a college graduate? You got a job.
You raise your hand, and there it was.
Got a job.
See, good old Albion. It could have been any place, but it was Albion.
Oh,
Hooray.
anyway, but that's discrimination. Oh.
Well, yeah.
So we ended up in the gas ration office.
Well, first of all, did you care what job you took, or
No,
were you
I
willing to
didn't.
take anything at
No.
that point? All right, so you were a gas ration clerk. Now, explain why and how that whole thing worked.
Well, you had to have coupons to get gas. And the people that worked at Ford could do it while they were working. They could come to our department and get the gas ration card, the coupons to get gas.
Well, you know what? Before we start that, let me read this. It said rationing involved setting limits on purchasing certain high demand items. The government issued a number of points to each person, even babies, which had to be turned in along with money to purchase goods made with restricted items. In 1943, for example, a pound of bacon cost 30 cents, but a shopper would also have to turn in 7 ration points to buy the meat. These points came in the form of stamps that were distributed to citizens in books throughout the war. The Office of Price Administration was in charge of this program, but it relied heavily on volunteers to hand out the ration books and to explain the system to consumers and merchants. And it also told me that things that were being rationed during the war were automobiles, tires, gasoline, fuel oil, coal, firewood, nylon, silk, and shoes.
Right.
Americans used their ration cards and stamps to take their meager share of household staples, including meat, dairy, coffee, dried fruit, jam, jelly, lard, shortening, and oil. So it sounds like everything that anyone needed was rationed.
And living at home, my mother was in charge of that. I did more than I was.
And she probably did a good job of handling all this. All right, so then let's go back to Highland Park Ford. What did you do with all these ration stamps or people? How did yours?
We
what
just
did
had
you
the
do?
gas. We just had the gas stamps.
Gas.
We didn't have a thing for anybody else.
Okay.
They were people that were working there in Ford that could come there and get their coupons.
Oh, for their own cars,
Their
for
own
their
car.
own gas. All right, so then a person would come in and stand in front of you at a desk, and what would they do?
I identify themselves, I guess,
Yeah.
and then we gave them the stamps.
Did you have to keep track of their names in a big book or anything?
No, not that was in the ledger clerk. No.
No, so you just handed out these stamps to people, and this was for them for getting their gas. Did
Their
they
own
come?
gas. It wasn't tires or anything. It was just gas.
Was it once a week, or do you remember whenever they needed
They
it?
lasted a while.
Okay, all right. And so how long were you doing that for the gas rationing? Because you also mentioned later that you were a tool ledger clerk.
Well, they shut down the gas rationing coupons, and they moved. I moved to the tool ledger clerk.
Okay.
Writing every time a tool was taken out of the crib, and I had to write that was taken for the government.
For the government. Now, they came to you in the office and told you what tools they were taking?
Or
did
a
you?
little slip of paper.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
All right. And you were not in the plant, you were in an office.
I was in the plant.
Oh.
In a just in the plant, I don't know where, somewhere in an office somewhere.
Right, but I mean, you weren't out on the assembly
Oh,
line.
no.
No, so you were not sitting in the tool crib.
Oh, no. No, I just wrote down when they took one out of the tool crib for the government to know, but they had no idea how many were, because it was all written out.
Did you have to then check them in also at the end of the day with the tools?
No. It's just telling the government where the tool was going.
Did you ever see any government inspectors
No,
come and look
no.
at your books?
No,
Do you remember if you wrote in ink or pencil?
it was probably ink.
Ink at that point.
Probably.
Good, well, you probably had nice handwriting. You were a college graduate.
Well, not much. It was fine.
Now, did you go with a friend or did you become friends with your coworkers?
Not particularly. In the gas ration, we had a great time because we all gone to different colleges. We had a fine time there, but in the tool crib, it was just a couple of us, and so.
You just wrote down who took what wrench or who took whatever, right? That was it. I wonder what the government ever did with these. Did you ever have to turn your books in?
No, these were huge ledgers. I don't know where they went after the war. It's just to keep track for the government.
All right. Did you have to take any special training or was it
No.
just writing down what was being told? All right, and you were living at home at this point where you had grown up. Did you go to work every single day?
Yes.
All right, and do you remember, was it a day shift or a night shift?
Day shifts, and I took the streetcar and transferred to Woodward. And,
How long did it take you to get to work?
I don't know.
Like a half hour?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe a half hour, okay. And were you paid pretty well?
I can't remember, but it was not much.
But it was, you felt it was fair, or did
Oh,
you?
yeah, I mean, anybody was glad to get a job.
All right, good. Now, did you have a special ID badge?
I suppose I did. Yeah,
Okay.
I probably had a badge or something to get into the plant.
Sure. And do you remember checking in or clocking in, having a punch
Not a
clock?
click. I don't remember a clock, but we were there.
You were there on time.
Oh, that's right.
That's for sure. You had some supervisors who were there in the office watching you, or were you just all by yourselves?
We were all by ourselves. They told us what to do, and we just did it.
So you were on the honor system at that
I
point.
guess.
Now, how about lunch? Did you bring lunch or did you buy
Oh, I
lunch?
probably brought lunch. I never bought anything.
Okay, you never bought anything, because with all this money, were you saving it, or?
Yes, I was. I was saving it for, well, it was after the war, and I was out of college, but I was just saving it so
Yeah.
we could buy a house.
Well,
or
that's
do
just
something.
it. Probably saving for the rest of your life with Dick when he would get home at this point. Do you remember if most of the women you worked with, or most of the workers, were they women in the office?
Yes.
Okay, and did you remember working with any black workers?
No.
All right. Did you ever hear anyone talking about childcare situations?
Never. No.
Well, most of the people
Stayed
you were,
home.
they were, well, and most were single probably who you were
Right.
working with?
Oh, yeah.
Or their children were taken.
Or men that weren't drafted.
Sure.
For some reason.
Yeah, right. Well, because the government did get into big-time child care during these years, because it became a priority to get those women to get to work. But if most of you were college graduates, single, because your boyfriends and husbands were overseas,
Yeah, all
you didn't
gone.
have child care problems at that point. Did you enjoy working at Ford?
Oh, it was fine. Lived at home and everything was fine.
Yeah. Did you feel that it was an important job that you were doing?
No, I don't know. It was just a job.
Well, someone had to know.
But I guess it was when you think about it.
Someone had to know where those wrenches were, so that somebody had to keep those records.
Somebody had to keep track for the
Yeah.
government.
Did you have other friends who had war-related jobs other places?
No, none of them did.
So you know that you are doing something very unique at that point,
Yeah.
kind of doing that. Did you ever volunteer during the war?
Oh, yes, as a nurse's aide at Providence Hospital at night. I'd work during the day and then take care of the new mothers at night.
Oh, that's nice, just the new mothers.
And a messy job.
It is a messy job.
They had me put them to bed. That's the messy job. but I learned.
You learned and you liked it. And
It was just down the street.
all right.
From our house.
So you were busy during the day for the war effort. You were busy during the night for the war
Right.
effort. And then you spent your time writing letters to Dick down in the Panama Zone.
That was it.
Did you do a lot of socializing during those years?
Not particularly. We didn't have a car to go anywhere, you know, we were just all stuck.
Did you enjoy being the gas rationing clerk more than the tool ledger?
Oh,
or-
yes. Oh, yes.
All right.
It was much nicer.
It was nicer because of what? Why?
The people I was working with,
Okay.
they were all ladies, and our boss was Parks McMichael, the dealer in Highland Park. He was our boss, and he'd go in and shut the door and go to sleep.
Oh, wait. No wonder you're saying you didn't have much supervision at all if you've got this guy sleeping in the office.
No, but they didn't know what to do with the dealers. See, they had no cars to sell, so they brought them into the plant.
Right.
And Mr. McMichael was he had the Parks McMichael dealership in Highland Park, Ford. So he brought him in.
So they brought him in, gave him a job, and it was just really a paper job more than anything else. But you were all working pretty hard. Were you busy giving out these gas?
Oh, no, we had plenty of time because they had to work. They just came down when they were working.
Okay.
It was fine.
Well, that is just really something. And then the tool ledgers, you were writing in the books
Yay.
who took what, when, where, and you assume they brought them all back. All right, then why did you stop working at Ford?
Because Dick came home.
There it is.
Yeah.
The war ended. He was in his service until the war ended.
Yeah.
All right. 1945 was the end of the war.
Yeah, and he went in 40, so he was in a long time.
He was. And when he finished, had he attained a new rank? What rank was he?
He was a captain.
He was a captain. Did he ever get any medals or awards? No. He was never in a dangerous work zone or a war zone, but he was doing a very important job. What had been his degree at Albion?
Just general.
Okay, so he wasn't an engineer or something like that.
No, he was just a BA or BS or whatever they call it.
Sure. All right, and he felt that he had enough training to do whatever he had to do down there.
That's right.
All right. Did he talk about his war years a lot after the war?
Not too much. I think it just went on, and he never said too much about it, but I know he was underground all that time.
Okay.
To defend the canal.
Did we have a lot of troops down there? Do you know? Was it a large base or a large undertaking?
I really don't know, but they were really probably not a base because they were just working to defend the canal.
Interesting.
That's right.
Well, people who grew up there are called Zonians. They were born in the Panama Canal Zone, and they're called Zonians as Americans. Zonians. Let's see. Senator McCabe was one. Senator McCain he grew up in the zone. Mm-hmm. All right. Now you have two children, David and Nancy, right? And David served in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So you are a several war participant in many respects. Did you send a lot of letters to David?
Well, not much. He had his wife, and I don't know. Time just goes by.
All right. Well,
I did right, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Now, what memories? What are your overriding memories of the war years? From, let's say, from Pearl Harbor until Dick came home. What are your memories of those years? That part of your life?
Well, I just lived at home and a good family and worked and wrote letters, and that's about all we could do.
Did you find that it was a scary time?
No.
You were not afraid for your own safety?
No.
You didn't worry about Dick's safety because he was able to tell you, I'm safe, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. You just missed him.
That's right.
Does everybody in your family know that you are considered an original Rosie?
Well, just the 5 grands and the 5 greats, and Nancy and David know about it now.
All right, well, that's fabulous. And we will be adding all kinds of pretty pictures into this video so that you'll be able to give all of your family a copy of this, and they'll have this for
the
history.
PEOs want to see it.
Yes, I know. Everybody
Oh,
wants
she
to
said,
see
"Oh,
it.
we'll show it here." I said, "Oh no, you won't show it here."
I think so. A video party, a showing party would be really great. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this interview about being an original Rosie during World War II?
No, it was just a nice job, and I didn't realize, I thought Rosie's had to be on the line, but I found through you that if you worked in a plant and worked for the government, you are a Rosie. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So that's why we have so many women around this country that we're interviewing, because everybody adds something different to the story.
Right.
You know, whether they were riveters or crane operators, or they were sewing the seats in the airplanes, or they were testing the tools or looking through the telescopes, whatever, whether they were giving out the gas ration cards, they all add to the story of the home front, and that's why it's so vital that we have this. So Liz, I thank you for sharing your interesting story with us. I thank you for giving your strength and your patriotic energy to America in the 1940s, and for doing your part to help win the war. You have made a difference in this world, and you are truly a heroine. The tribute Rosies from the Yankee Air Museum at the historic Willow Run B-24 bomber plant are honored to share your story with many museums around this country as part of the National Veterans History Project. Good job, Rosie. Thank you.
Thank you, too. You've done a great job.